Welcome to the Create the Life You Want podcast, where we break down the journey of people just like you going from dream to ownership in business acquisitions, franchises, and startups. I'm your host, Jeremy Ames. Today's episode is brought to you ad-free by Guidant Financial. Guidant is America's leading company helping aspiring entrepreneurs use retirement funds to buy or start businesses. If you're committed to buying or starting a business, you can find out more about your funding options by going to www.guidantfinancial.com. That's Guidant financial.com. Now, let's get started with the show. Welcome, everyone, to the Create the Life You Want podcast. Today, I am joined by Holly Kleiman, who is in the state of Michigan. And Holly followed what she calls a calling. She has been in the health industry for a long time, in a corporate career, and now is going out on her own as a business owner to really focus on supporting long-term wellness and longevity. I think the term that I heard when I talked to her earlier was health span. So, Holly, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Well, I always love to start with, tell us about your sort of backstory. Did you always know you wanted to be an entrepreneur, and what did you do in your life before you decided to make this jump?
I have always wanted to end up ultimately doing what I am doing, but I never really understood the form. I think it was more the essence of what I wanted. But I was in a long career, golden handcuff career, 26 years as a healthcare consultant for a very large consulting firm. And I was actually on a path of, just stay the course. I loved my job. I loved my clients. And then something happened. And, life just, you listen to the rumblings. About 25 years ago, I hired a voice coach, and he had always said, listen to those rumblings. And that never left me. And when things change, as we evolved and the ACA grew to be a very large law, my company was acquired, or the firm that I was in was acquired. And I had, it was that moment where I thought, wow, this is either going to make or break me. And it was probably the best years I had, being acquired by a very large company. I was very afraid, that I would, not succeed, which is such a weird fear because I had always been successful. And it allowed me to, expand and grow. But as we got larger and larger, and as we got more acquired by larger private equity firms, it was very clear that we need to shrink the pie a little bit. And yet my production goals were never reduced. And that was getting tighter and tighter, and just harder to manage clients. I had big household names. I was very proud of my clients. I had clients with me for 20 years. And I really did not think I was ever going to leave. I think when life gets hard and life hands you a different set of rules, you kind of take a step back and say, do I want to operate in this fashion anymore? And that was really what happened. It was a new set of rules were placed in front of me, and I thought, I don't know that I want to play these rules this way. So I had to go within and basically find out, what do I really want to do when I grow up? Because again, that little fear thing that happened in 2012 and came full force in front of me, because this is all I ever knew. And, I just got quiet. I hired a few other coaches in my life, and really just tried to understand what is it that why am I here? Is this really all that it's about, is to make them a lot of money? I was making a beautiful income, and I didn't need to change anything. But those rumblings kept getting louder and louder, and other things started happening that weren't really resonating with who I was becoming. And so when that thing just changes, you just like, okay. So it was really just an internal shift, and then I had joined a mastermind. It was called Authentic CEO, And it was, kind of about starting a company, but starting a company from doing it in a different way, from a conscious way. And it was in that mastermind that I had formed this little idea that became, as it happens, just, hey, I think you should talk to this person, and I think you should talk to this person. And then I started just researching all of those people and those ideas, and it led me, to finally this really beautiful thing that I'm creating. So
Yeah, what I'm hearing in your story is that you started to get to more and more of a disconnect with your role. Maybe the values it represented, the rules it was playing by that maybe didn't fit with what you thought was
yeah,
fair or worked for your clients.
yeah.
And so you invested in yourself. I'd love to hear more about how you did that. How many coaches did you work with? What kind of
Uh,
coaches? Where did you find them?
I had I again, I think life happens for you, and not to you. And there were personal hardships and that were being faced with. I was in a very long marriage, and that wasn't going very well, and always trying to make it better, and it just never seemed to click. And so there was a really hard decision in front of me to make there. And then um and then I was at the top of my game. I was at the top, percentage of my company in terms of well respected, and um just bringing in the business. But I was put in my place, and it was a very uncomfortable, sincerely, I had never experienced such a thing, and I really never got over it. And when I say that it happened for me, not to me, at the time I thought it happened to me, but it's so not true. It was just that there were bigger plans for my life, and I was never gonna leave
Yeah.
had those things not happened. And so I'll just stick with, the company was growing, and I didn't, as big corporate America, it's just, um, the rules do change. And I just needed to just, did I really want to play by these rules? Did I want to work this hard at not gaining that much more? Whereas when I would bring in, the business, um, I'm supposed to make, it was a really beautiful split, but it was 100% commission. And when you live 100% commission, you you eat what you kill. And, it just got harder and harder to manage when you had a leaner and leaner workforce to work with. And that was where I said, I don't. Thanksgiving is happening, and I'm not available, and Christmas is happening because everybody wants an insurance card on January 1. Every large policy renews January 1st. So it is a lifestyle, and my colleagues, my friends, my people that I've been with for so long. I see that today, going, oh my gosh, they're still in it, and I see how it actually affects you, because it's just harder and harder. And some people are really good at it. Some people can play that game, um, but I think I couldn't play the game because I think, I'll say God. Some people say universe. There was a bigger plan for my life, and I know that today. And so I think I think the biggest gift that was, all throughout all of this was I wasn't sure how I was going to make that happen. You know, so I was, literally searching, how am I going to start a business, and I have made all of this money over here, and how am I going to take that retirement and make it work for me? And so many people told me I couldn't do that. So many people were like, don't do that. Go get this. Go get an angel investor. Go. I never wanted to lose the autonomy of what I was building, and I didn't want to give out my, what I feel are, just I'm building something very special. I know that deeply, and um, I just wanted to make this my idea. So companies like yourself come along, and I was researching, and I'm a big meditator. So, I think, prayer is when you talk to God, but meditation is when He talks to you. And I was asking, please bring people into my life that will, that I don't have to. Um, it's a pretty big hardship when you have to use your retirement. Um, there's a pretty big tax involvement here. So the concept of what your company helped me do, it literally was the foundation of how I was able to build what I've already built and allowed me to build the brick and mortar today. So
Yeah. So
um,
let me back up. It sounds like you had this successful job, but most of your savings you had been funneling into your retirement account,
all
all of your savings. So
all
they
of
probably gave you
everything.
fantastic incentives to just pump all sorts of money
Yeah.
there. Were you prepared to take a distribution in order to start your business? Were you at that point?
No, I was not prepared. I actually stayed longer so that I could be vested in certain stock options. But again, where there's a will, there's a way. And I was like, there's got to be a way that I can structure the company in a fashion where I can use my retirement and not pay a giant and not pay a penalty, essentially. Um, and so I had gone to an event, and I had also so I went through several conferences, and one individual that was at a salt conference, I believe, was like, hey, you can just open up a Rob's. And, of course, I was just like writing everything down. And um, I went and researched. I did find your company originally, and then I went to a few other, avenues and met more smarter people than me. And it kept coming back. And so I did more and more research and successfully and legally. And it was very important for me to stay above the, rules, make sure that I'm following all the rules the right way. So I am, I feel blessed that I was in the career for 26 years, where I kind of set it and forget it. I was kind of that kind of investor. But I was able to, set aside a substantial amount of money. And then, it was a team of individuals at your company that held my hand to make sure that all those transactions um, were done properly, safely, and correctly, and in compliance with all the rules of the IRS.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Yep.
Always love to hear that, the journey of how you financed it. I want to back up a little bit though, because there's two things I want to spend a little more time in. One is I want to hear more about the coaches you worked with and what they did to help you discover more about what you wanted your path to look like. And then I want to circle back to some of these conferences that you were attending, presumably to learn something about the space that you wanted to get into. So can we
Sure.
back up and talk about the coaches?
Yeah.
What coaches
So
did you work with, and what were you trying to learn from working with them?
I always wanted to understand a little more about why I make the decisions I make.
Okay.
And I always wanted to, I always asked myself, what is my role in this? Because, and I quickly learned that we do create our own reality. And so and being I grew up in a Christian home, but I didn't always see Christian values expressed. And so I would say I am spiritual. I am not religious. And I had a lot of, childhood was beautiful in many ways because I had beautiful grandparents that were, very protective of me. But, I have very young parents that, thank God they had me. But they had me at tough times in their lives, like high school sweethearts, and like I'm the second child, so I definitely was not supposed to be born. You're like, okay, you wouldn't have repeated that twice. Um, so again, life happens for me, not to me. Um, and I just I I think there's something that, kind of gets woken inside of you. It's like, why am I asking these questions and why am I not satisfied? Why am I not happy doing what I'm doing? Why am I not satisfied in this relationship, and in my career? And so, you get real, with a coach. Now, um, I had some pretty hard things happen, sad things that had happened, and I could no longer go to church. I went to a huge mega church in Chicago and loved my church. But every time I walked in, I could not maintain composure, because my heart hurt so much. And so when I found this other coach, her name's Colette Baron Reed. She's now more famous, but she's an intuitive coach. And it was just she came into my life at a time where I got to go left or right, but I can't go straight anymore because something is off. And before she was in Canada, and it was my friend who was following Dr. Wayne Dyer. And she was like, that's my guru. And when she was following him, she was going to this, I think it was called Celebrate Your Life. And he had died 1 month or so before the event. And she was just like, ah. So she goes to the event. She's got to change all of her schedule around, and she ends up in Colette's class. And she's like, I can't explain it, but she walked in, and I got chills all over my body, and we just got to get to know her. And so I went to a little yoga retreat, with my best friend, and I was just there for my friend. I wasn't there for me, and it turned out that she called on me, and I was like, oh, no, 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 you need to be talking to her. And she's like, oh, she thinks she's here for her friend. She made fun of me. Um, and long story short, she was able to pull out so much of what my soul wanted, and taught me that ego is exit God out, and your ego is running the show, and the ego's got to take a back seat, and you have to. And why is your ego doing that? And your ego is doing that because it's your protective self, and it's that little child there that. Is saying don't do that. That's you remember when that happened. Now we're going to play it safe, and by playing it safe, I was playing small, and I played small my whole life. I really didn't have much of a voice. I didn't think I was smart. I didn't think I was pretty enough. I didn't think I was enough. And she finally brought that out. That no, 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 no. If you are worthy and you are enough, and that kind of broke my heart open in a beautiful way. um, and it just allowed me to say, why am I here? Because those are the bigger questions, is like, am I here just to advance, and just pound the pavement and make money and have this beautiful life? Yeah, that's lovely. um, and I don't discount any of that. But what is my bigger purpose? And she taught me, I was such a caregiver and a caretaker, and I can't take care of, people have to care for themselves. But I can maybe be their coach, and I can be their guide, but I am not their hero. And she taught me, um, really, that I am the hero in my own story. And that really has led, I couldn't articulate that up until like this past year, where I really understood that, yeah, no one's coming to save me.
Yes.
Um, so it was her, and then I graduated with her, and then I had met many people. I was with her in several masterminds. As she began to grow, I would find and meet people within those groups. I have a beautiful, core group of friends. But I had hired two other women who were created Authentic CEO. Um, and I was with them, and they were coaching me and just teaching me on consciousness and how to, run a company from an authentic perspective. So it was started with the personal side, then it kind of morphed into the professional side. And all the while, it always comes with, from within.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, so the first coach you were working with, Colette, sounds like she really helped you expose what it was that you really wanted and how your ego was getting in the way. So you just sort of briefly share what is it that you learned about what you really wanted, and how did that lead you then to the next step of working with the Authentic CEO coaching program?
I had to journal a lot. I had to do a lot of art, and I had a lot of healing. I had to heal a lot of things in my life, and I had to forgive myself. And there were a lot of things that I had that I didn't even realize that I needed. I was putting so much pressure on myself. So I didn't know what I want. And she kept saying, and I go, I know what I don't want. And she goes, and the more you focus on what you don't want, you're going to continue to get. And I was like, huh. So I learned the law of attraction. And if you focus on more of what you don't want, you will get that very thing, because that is where your energy is going. So uh, it's hard because a lot of negativity goes into that ego self. You know, we have to have a feeling, and that feeling has to match where you're headed. So I again, I had to learn through a divorce, what I don't want. Um, but if she reminded me quickly that if you keep focusing on what you don't want, you're going to get the very thing that you don't want. So be careful on using your words. Um, so that's really, and I use that mantra today. Is that and I tell my children this, is if we continue to focus on the negative, um, then that we will get more of that. And Colette taught me that gratitude is the abracadabra. And the more grateful I am for those things that happened, and I had to chart out all of the things that happened in my life, the synchronistic times, um, because I was quickly reminded that there's no coincidences in life. At the time, your egoic self is not processing why this is happening, but when you actually get the chance to reflect, you're like, wow, that's really powerful, that my life has led me to where I am today. The biggest example I can, I just wanted to get out of the house when I went to college. I didn't care where I went. It was not a focus. I was told I couldn't go. I was like, whatever, I'm out. And I got a degree in health communications. And I chose that degree because I thought it was easy. And then again, I was told I wanted to be a health news reporter. That was really what was going on in my head. And then somebody told me my eyebrows were too thick and that I wasn't pretty enough for camera. I mean, it was the weirdest thing. And I listened to those things. But then I look back and I go, oh, I got that health communications degree and I loved the science behind the biology and the human body. And my favorite class was, the anatomy class where we got to actually open up cadavers and look inside the human body to see, all of those parts, even though, they're kind of gross, but it was fascinating to me. And so I look back at that and say, I was being held in a position of not really, I was being guided without actually being, no, I was even being guided. And even though the ego gets in the way, um, I do believe we're on a path, and we all have a path, and we're going to take some exits on occasion. But I do believe we all have a purpose, and um, we're not here just for our own good. We're just, that doesn't make, anybody that tells me that, I'm just like, oh, that's too bad that you haven't discovered that your own personal power. And I would say that too, she taught just how powerful we are as humans, with our minds. And she introduced me to Bruce Lipton. She introduced me to Joe Dispenza and the work he's done on the brain. Um, and then that led to, you know, um, I go to these biohacking conferences, and now look at that. Joe Dispenza's taking the stage. It's fascinating to me to see that it's now all coming full circle, from the stuff that I've learned in the past to here.
It sounds like you knew you had this passion for health, and you had that since you had taken that initially as an easy major, but learned that
Mhm.
you really enjoyed that part. Sounds like she really opened you up to think more about what you wanted and how your desire to be safe, your ego was getting in the way of that. I'm curious, how did that all connect to you wanting to own a business? Like when did that part open up for you? Did it kind of open up after you decided to join the second group that was really focused on the CEO piece? Did you have to envision that thing happening to see it, or did you kind of already know that you wanted that, and so when that group opened up you said, yes, that's the group I need to be a part of?
Um, so I had lost a $500,000 account. And when you lose a $500,000 account, you are just like, it was so painful
Yeah.
because um one account, uh and you are making 25% in retention to make up that account, when I was already very tired. I was like, oh my gosh, how much more business I have to write in order to do that. So I had actually just called as a friend, and I was just connected to this woman that was leading the charge of this group. And I said, I have no idea why I'm calling you. I just feel so bad right now. And I just needed to, I'm sure I just figured you would be able to, maybe console me and understand, because she was also, she was a business owner, and she, in the tech space. And so I just felt like again, I had this prompting to call her, randomly, and she's like, "Well, maybe that's because you're supposed to join my group." And I was like, "Oh, like, what do you mean?" And so she had explained, what her and Amy were doing, and I was like, "Well, sure, I'll give it a shot." Um, you know, um, I Ever since I left Colette, I felt like I needed that guidance. I needed that community. I needed that connection, um, because uh, y- spirituality is like a lonely. I mean, it shouldn't be, a lonely place, but personally, um, you know, people want it done in a certain way with religion, and I just, I never that never really resonated with me. So, I wanted to connect and continue with like-minded people. Um, and then there were people in the group that were also business owners. So, it was just a different perspective then. I was fascinated to see these women who were also had already started companies, and I was just still a W-2 employee trying to figure out, how am I going to get there on the other side of that camp? How am I going to get through that Zoom call? Like, how can I be in their position? I thought about it all the time.
It's interesting. Despite all the work you had done, it sounded like it took a major, major moment of pain to kick you out of the status quo.
I need
I'm
billboards.
curious if you ever think about that moment and wonder, would I even be on this path if that account hadn't
No,
left
probably
yet?
not. Well, so the remember I told you I was put in my place.
Yeah,
And I'm not that kind of, it was a very male dominated industry. The health insurance, the insurance industry is. And when a woman excels, they are happy to see that. I think it was a bad day for everybody that day.
yeah,
And I was saying, hey, we're going to lose a really big account. And this was, I had 20 other clients that I was dealing with, and this one was taking like 40 hours. So if you can imagine, and thank God I had that. Um, I was not the one that lost accounts. I just didn't, because I built trust with my clients. I was their trusted advisor. I was a student of the industry. You know, they had a question, I knew it, and if I didn't know it, they made me a better broker and they made me smarter. And I would prided myself on that. Um, you know, so I think the prediction that I was going to, I would say, um, intimidation. I don't know what. I don't want to get into it, but you know, it was a bad day for that executive, and I was really hurt, and I never got over it. I never got over it. So when I did lose it, I was like, you know, this is the one I was talking about, right? Like everybody, are we all clear that I said this was going to happen? And then it was just evolving. And well, you didn't do this, you didn't do that, you didn't do this, you didn't. And I was like, oh, this is so interesting to me because the accountability we're supposed to be having that you told me I have to have, I'm not feeling it from the other side. So it was, yes, had I not lost it, because it brought a lot of good money, you know, in addition to all my other clients. It was a healthy account.
So
Um,
it's the kick in the pants you need to do
mm,
something. You call this lady, you join her group. Now
mhm.
walk us through what happened in that group that got you on a path to clarity on a business you wanted to start.
So we were always talking about consciousness and authenticity. I knew all these principles because I was already with Colette. So I just, I knew, like, and some of these women were like, huh, never even thought of that. And I was like, this is so interesting to me that they've never thought of that. Um, and yet they knew the mechanics of starting a business. And I held them in a just this higher regard. Um, but it was this very woman that I had called and said, you know, I don't know why I'm calling you today. But as I was sitting in a sauna, and I think it was post COVID? Yes. I'm sitting in a sauna and I'm looking around and I'm like, there's got to be a business model around here. There's got to be something like, and my whole life, actually my whole adult life, I have wanted an infrared sauna. That same best friend that introduced me to Colette, um, when we had lost track of each other for 18 years past high school,
Oh,
and it was a huge hole in my heart that I had not that I had missed this beautiful best friend of mine, and we had a falling out. And then Facebook comes along, and then like there she is, and I'm like, oh. And I call him my starter husband. He says, I put you on Facebook, and I was like, I'm a professional. Don't you dare do that. And this is like when MySpace is going on, so I didn't really understand it. But when I found her on Facebook, I was like, oh my gosh. So we reunited, and her and I in high school, my stepdad was in the hotel business, and he started as a cook and he became a GM. And so when I was growing up, we were in fancy hotels, and when we moved to a new area, we were staying in the suite, like the penthouse suite, and we were always like, wouldn't it be beautiful if we could just own a spa and that? And that never left me. And so that's kind of where I was like, I'd love to own a spa. So her and I were gifted by the starter husband to go to a spa in Utah. And this spa was like a tennis club, and they did all these other things. And it was at this spa where I think like things like I noticed certain things and I was like, ooh, we should be doing we should have that in the spa and we should do that in the spa. And then I was in like the locker room and there was an infrared sauna, and this woman said that she had mercury poisoning, and from those fillings, you know, that they used to put in your mouth. And she said the only way that she healed was through an infrared sauna. And I loved heat, and I, you know, and again, I grew up in the little tiny spas in the hotels. So um I it was like an infrared sauna way back when, and I was like, oh, I could totally get one, you know, delivered to my house. You know, we were living in a high rise in Chicago at the time. So I always figured, well, maybe I could put it there. Maybe I could put it there. Um, but the infrared sauna was a remarkable modality for me that I never was able to get and put into my home. And then I'm sitting in one in Michigan, in the town I'm in, and I'm looking around and I'm thinking there's got to be a way to turn this into a business. And that is when I then presented my idea to Authentic CEO. And she's like, you know what? I just met somebody who invented a machine, and I think you should meet him. And of course, because uh, I play small, I shouldn't play small, but I let like a CEO or somebody with a big title make me nervous. And I was afraid to call him. And she's like, no, 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 you have to call him. You have to have this discussion. And he had created a machine that was like nothing on the market. Um, and when we talked about that machine, that was kind of the introduction of, he put 5 of these modalities in one machine. I'm going to start researching what all of these modalities do. And maybe I can have a business around that. And so then that's where things started just formulating and just, oh, I'm gonna go look and experience that idea. And then I noticed I was connecting the dots. Everything that I was researching was oxidative stress kept coming up, and so then I would search that, um, and then I was realizing, oh, the industry that I'm in right now, I have been talking about inflammation and chronic disease for 20 some odd years. And Time Magazine came out with an article in 2004 called The Silent Killer. And it referenced that the number one killer is inflammation. And so um, when you are used to just doing one thing in your life, like I was an expert in one field, um, I was afraid to go figure out how to go into a new field. And I think that's just kind of where my smarts started connecting the dots and saying, how am I, this isn't wasted. 26 years of being the best I could be in this industry. What can I take and bring into this new one? And that's when I thought, oh, remember that infrared sauna? They were able to detox. And then I started reading more studies. There's a lot of science now that's it's been out there for a long time. It's just been, overlooked, if you will. But in 1990, they called it the Michigan study, and there was flame retardant material that was somehow got into the livestock feed of the dairy cows. And it turns out that the milk was produced, the milk went out, and it contaminated like half the country. And so there's a book on it. You can look it up. But the one doctor that was referencing this study was that they were taking samplings of those that had PCBs now in their body, and they used an infrared sauna to detox the body. It was the only thing that was helping them, get better. Um, and so then it's just my mind started going from there, going, what other things? I loved this infrared sauna. And I always said infrared sauna. I never said a regular Norwegian, hot air sauna, because I knew that there was a difference between the heat elements, and one heats you within and one heats the air. And there's arguments about what's better or what's not, but I'm staying in my lane, and I love this machine. So that's kind of where it started. And then as I started, researching what is red light therapy, what is molecular hydrogen, what is vibroacoustic sound experience, what is meditation, um, and what is PEMF, and why would they all be in one unit together? And that's how I built my company, is on this machine. The machine I can't afford. It is on the market for $150,000. Um, but it is a dream of mine to own it. And I'm now personal friends with that creator. And, I got very close to that company. And then, as what's so funny is when I finally met that man who created it, um, he was very, very, very spiritual. Like, she's like, be careful. He's like, he's like, think we think we're just like really aware, but he's like really deep. um, and so I met his whole team. And then in our meeting with this other woman from California, we're talking about this beautiful machine. The COO from that company goes, "Can I interrupt this meeting for a second?" And he looks directly at me and he says, "Holly, what you're building is huge." And I was like, is he in my mind? Is he? And I hadn't said anything. And then he and I connected, and turns out he is also an intuitive coach. So I left the Authentic CEO group and said, I think I need to work with this other individual one on one, because I think I have more personal healing that needs to take place so I can start this company. And so, yeah, it all kind of led to one person led to another, but all very good humans. Just, you know, basically sharing their gifts to the world,
Yeah.
which then allowed me to find mine.
Yeah. And it sounds like the genesis for this is really a deep-seated belief in the power of science to transform people's lives from a longevity standpoint. I'm curious, for you, this is such a purpose-driven project. When you started to put this together, are you creating a business plan? Are you creating a set of financial projections where you're looking at all these machines and things that you need to invest in for these modalities? Like, walk us through the logistics of, okay, you've got this passion now. What do you do to start to execute on it?
I went to the biohacking conference, could barely afford the ticket. No joke. Um, because I was still working in my job, and I was, and I had, I was not making up, excuse me, those accounts that, it was like, it was finally catching up to me. So I started researching. My spirituality was first. Okay. So I had to visualize what I wanted. And in order to visualize what I wanted, I needed to literally put this in writing and meditate on it. And this is what this last coach was teaching me. It was like, in the morning we're going to do this, in the afternoon we're going to do this, and in the evening we're going to do this. And you will be so shocked how quickly things happen. And that's what I was trying to. So I meditated on bringing in new business without effort, because I still needed to prove to my bosses that I was worthy and that I was gonna, I was still, you know, um, playing the game. And then on the other side, I was researching, later in the evening, and whenever I, could have time to do that. Um, and so I went to the Dave Asprey biohacking conference, and that was when it just opened my whole world. And my best friend, the one that I, built this little idea on, when we were 15, she came along with me. And again, I didn't have enough money to buy anything yet, because I was sitting on all of this money that all my financial advisors were telling me, you're crazy. You cannot use that money. You need to go find a bank loan. You need to go do it this way. And so I went to the conference, learned a ton, and met, so many other, different modalities. And that's kind of how I got introduced to the importance of lymphatic drainage. And I met the creator and the owner of that. Um, the company that I was referring to created the life chambers from a company called Immortal. And I was just so close to them that my I got my dad a job. He ended up like driving this chamber into this huge conference. So we were all very close. And then I just met all these other people, and I just kept looking at, lymphatic drainage. That's where I said, "Hey, I've investigated this sauna. You should buy this sauna," because my girlfriend was, she had just acquired her father's company. And he was 80, and he was coming in, she was about to come into a beautiful inheritance, and take over his company. So she literally was buying like the sauna, and I was like, oh, she's buying what I want to have. And so by her just like walking through and be like, I'm gonna buy that, and I'm gonna buy that, that actually inspired me to like figure it out faster. Um, and so um, again, it was like a week long. It was a few days of 4 days of just constant learning, and then I came back, and then she has a house down in Key West, and I asked her. I said, "Do you think I can um, go be by myself and have your house because I got to go figure out how I'm going to leave my company." And and remember, I was still meditating and I was still writing out every day what I wanted, and I was down to a very specific number. Again, I said it earlier in the podcast, I would set it and forget it. I was one of those where I um, I could understand my relationship with money. Um, I never I never feared that it was not going to come, but I just didn't put much emphasis on like how I was investing in it. And, I just threw it in the 401k. And then whenever I won a big account, I got more stock options. And then I got more stock options. And then I made, these other awards, and I got other awards presented to me. But I never put it all together. And so it was on that little retreat where I was able to be away from my kids. And, because I have two. And, um, uh, it's being a mom. Since COVID, I've been a stay at home mom, which is a beautiful gift, actually. But I needed that time, and it was during that week that I discovered, oh my gosh, everything I've been writing out, I think is possible, and and I had to jump out of an airplane at the end of the week to get enough gumption to go. I'm going to walk into my boss's office and I'm going to resign.
So you booked a skydiving trip as a precursor to quitting your job?
Yes,
Okay. And,
because
then
because
quitting
the
your job scares
fear
you more?
the fear of walking away from an income, and not having anybody, not having a lifeline to support me, and knowing that I have to take care for my kids. And I was petrified to make that leap of faith, even though I knew that my calling was pushing me in this direction.
You were
Um,
petrified, but you did it anyway, Holly? But how does that work?
um, so I think there's another individual. There's a couple of individuals that I've met over the last 18 months that have. Well, actually, and I'll take it back to Colette too. I learned in her class, face fear stands for face everything and run. No, fear everything and run, or face everything and rise. And I held on to face everything and rise. And there were a lot of tears. There were a lot of sleepless nights. There were a lot of times that I was like, I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to leave, because I am not going to pay a tax on all of that money, because then I'm just paying a tax and I'm not going to start a business, because then I'm not going to have enough money to start this business. And so, um, again, it was just really, the my my I don't know the Bible very well, even though I grew up in that. Um, and I can't recite it as well as some people in my family, but the one I can say is "Be still and know," and it's Psalms 46:10, and that is all that I held on to, was "Be still and know," and if you build it, they will come. It will happen. My timing it might not be my timing, but it will be when it's supposed to happen. And so that whole week, I apologize, I didn't shut my dinging. I realized that I had enough money, but now I had to go and speak to my boss. And so I pulled in another friend and I said, would you please jump out of a plane with me and that's very scary to me. And if I can jump on a plane, I can go talk to my boss.
All right. That's the
So,
first time I've ever heard that as a recipe for getting the career business. Just jump out of a
well, it's
plane.
a really scary thing to, basically jump off a plane.
I have done
Um,
it once, and I don't have the need to do it ever again.
I actually think I would.
You would? Yeah.
It felt like, whoa. You could see the atmosphere, the difference, and I was just like, oh, I was in awe
Yeah.
of the beauty and the experience. So so
I
I
think,
did it, um, and again, the timing isn't my timing. And when I presented that to my boss, he's like, "You can't leave. No, nope, it's not an option." And I was like, yeah, I think I'm gonna leave. And he said, nobody does this. Nobody does this. Um, and and then we decided to work together as a team. And again, my timing isn't my timing, and I said I would like to retire. I don't want to leave and go work for a competitor. I really want to go and build something that is meaningful. And I don't have it all figured out, and I'm scared. But I know that I can't stay here because the resistance to come into my office every morning, every Monday, is so heavy. And I'm not, and if I'm going to live my authentic world, I have to be true to myself, and I have to do the very thing that I'm afraid to do, which is being here with you and telling you this. Um, and I think because I came from that place, he met me where I was, which was the greatest gift he could have given me. And I ended up staying till the end of the year. And that was a journey in and of itself because again, my worthiness and my enoughness, that played out for so long in my life that I wasn't, was confirmed by my clients who were crying as I was communicating that I was leaving. Um, that was a gift to me, and I didn't expect any of that reaction, and I felt honored, and then I felt like, oh my gosh, am I making a mistake? Um, but I knew that I couldn't go back, and I knew I needed to just, okay, press on. Um, and I and it was in October. That is when I realized, oh my gosh, I think I figured it out. I think I can actually um, open up a Rob's and do the very thing that I want to do. And and uh, and that was really, yeah, where it,
And so then you jumped out of a plane and quit your job. And so now, Holly, before we run out of time, I want to give you an opportunity to tell people about the vision of what it is that you're creating, because I believe you've done a little bit of stuff so far, but really the retail location that you're envisioning is opening here pretty soon. So why don't you
yes.
tell us a little bit about
So
what
yeah,
you're trying to do, who you're serving, and what that's going to look like?
so the company is called Sapphire and Salt, and uh, that was a name near and dear to me for a long time because I am a September baby, and that is the gemstone that I never really valued, and so sapphire, I am that sapphire, um, and uh, and the salt was just Veruca salt. Remember Veruca salt from
Willy
Willy
Wonka and the Chocolate
Wonka,
Factory.
right? Like I wanted to have a gender neutral space. And so again, with all the claim data that I had in my back pocket, and the top 5 disease states are hypertension, hyperlipidemia, type 2 diabetes, back pain, and neck pain. These are all lifestyle claims.
Yeah.
Um, how could I use my past and bring it to my present? And so all the modalities within Sapphire and Salt. It's a wellness and longevity center, and it will reduce oxidative stress. Um, it will increase your circulation. It will reduce inflammation. And I'll be offering high static pulsed electric magnetic frequency I vetted this machine out and realized it was modeled after a Nikola Tesla device that was built in 1890. I've had lots of individuals come in and try the machine, and they're having beautiful reactions because it's just increasing your ATP. And when you can increase that's the energy within the body, within the mitochondria. It's called adenosine triphosphate. It's like the best cup of coffee you never had. I'll be offering red light therapy, and red light therapy is very good for not only just aesthetics and the beauty, that it does for your skin, but it's very good for injuries of the brain, individuals that, suffer from, I've had a few people that have had Hashimoto's and have come in and have sat in front of the red light and are like, it's bringing back my energy and bringing back my life. I'm not curing anything. I'm not diagnosing. I'm not fixing anything. All I'm doing is increasing people's ability to reduce that inflammation, decrease their oxidative stress, which then their cells can heal and
All
regenerate.
devices to get their system
Yeah,
to work better and
yeah,
more efficiently.
yeah. Well, I think we're at the top of the hour, but we'll have a hyperbaric chamber. We'll have a salt room and mind, body, spirit. I do have a heavy metal detox that detoxes the body. And when you can detox heavy metals out of adipose tissue, then the weight just falls off. And so we'll be offering that as well as lymphatic drainage. And all of my machines are FDA cleared medical 2 devices. And many of these have, again, I'm staying away from, I'm not here to treat anybody. I'm just here to get people back to kind of a homeostasis, big in the chakras. We can harmonize and align our bodies. Our bodies have an ability to heal. And so heal one, heal all is really what I'm trying to accomplish.
Well, Holly, thanks so much for joining us on the show today. I love that you jumped out of a plane to get the courage to leave your job. Um,
Me
Took you
too.
many, many years, it sounds like, to get comfortable with and find your path to taking ownership of where you wanted your life to go. But you can see it and hear it in your voice, how much connection you have to doing something that really fulfills you and makes the world around you better. And
Yeah, thank
so,
you.
super excited for you, and keep us posted on how
I
things
will.
go with the new location when it launches.
Yeah, I can say that the website is launched, so it's
Okay,
sapphireandsaltspa.com.
great.
Yeah,
Well, thanks again for your time today, Holly.
thank you. Nice to meet you.
Thanks for listening to the Create the Life You Want podcast. If you like what you heard, you can subscribe to future episodes by clicking the subscribe button, you know where. If you're an aspiring business owner, you may also want to subscribe to the Create the Life You Want newsletter for more inspiration and tips delivered to your inbox every week. You can find the link to that in the show notes, as well as on my personal website, jeremyames.com. If you've already decided you want to start or buy a business, consider exploring your financing options by heading to our sponsor's website at www.guidantfinancial.com. That's GUIDANT financial.com. See you in the next episode.